time for a new episode of the Rebel Radio Podcast. Welcome in, wonderful listeners,
Yes,
lovely people, hot chicks. You know, we assume there's some hot chicks listen to us. I don't know.
weird Australian guys.
Yeah, I think and random person in like Budapest or something that listens to us.
Yeah, there's a person in Budapest.
And but you know, no matter where you're from or who you are, and we welcome you to the show. And
Yes.
And in case you forget, because I always do this towards the end of the show, sometimes I forget, the Rebel Radio Podcast is our website where you can find all of our links and to all the apps and things that we're on. We're pretty much on every major podcast app that you can find, Apple and whatever else there is now, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, all that good stuff. And just in case you didn't know, and we encourage you to join our Rebel Radio Facebook group. And I wouldn't say join the Twitter page because I hardly ever update it, but it's there if you want. Or sorry, it's an X page, which still sounds like a pornographic website to me. Well, Twitter is kind of like a pornographic website. If you know where you're going.
Yeah.
You know?
Or even if you don't know where you're going, you'll run into it.
Yeah. And Instagram's not much better nowadays. It's like maybe that's just people I follow, but we won't talk about that. And whatever porn bot keeps trying to post links to our Rebel Radio Facebook group page, I hope your ball sack itches forever, motherfucker. You know, it's like, good Lord, man.
Dude, a lot. It's a lot of it.
It's like, I'm not going to click on your link that's spyware or something, you know. So just stop.
That's number one.
You're not going to tip me with a big booty bimbo in my face on those porn links.
Yep. We're like Paul Rudd, and 40-year-old virgin. We don't want your big box of porn, Andy.
That's right. Take your box and throw it in the trash.
Is that Boner Jams 03?
We'll watch porn on our own free time.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. We're gearing up for we're already in late February, man. It seems like this year just started, and we're going to be gearing up here soon for our April theme month, possibly. I'm not going to give any details on that. Then we'll gearing up for our 10th anniversary show, and then our 400th episode, and then Comic Palooza, man. May is going to be just wild, man. With everything going on, but it's going to be a fun wild, and we haven't decided what we're doing for the 10th anniversary show, but we're getting there, and then the 400th episode, that's a huge one, and so it's going to be a lot of fun. And we kind of have a tentative idea of what we're going to talk about Comic Palooza. We're trying to convince our other co-host Long to come along with us for his expertise if we choose that topic. So we'll have to persuade him with bananas and hot chocolate or something. I don't know.
There you go. Yeah.
I mean,
tuna fish.
Yeah. Just sounds good.
Yeah.
Or maybe just some sake and get him drunk and
sake.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You ever drink sake before? Not the stuff they sell in the grocery store, like the wine, like real sake.
Nah. Yeah, I've been to like Japanese steakhouses and
it's served warm, and it's not real good.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an acquired taste. I guess you have to grow up drinking it. It's kind of like it'll get you fucked up. Don't get me wrong.
Oh yeah,
it's just like not good.
But Tom Cruise kept calling for it in The Last Samurai, and I'm like, yeah, I would love some sake. And I'm like, this is probably some great stuff.
I mean,
and
Tom wanted it's probably awesome.
Yeah. And I'm like, man, this is kind of not what I was expecting.
No, that's not. But man, how's your week been?
Yeah, it's been a good week. Pretty smooth, pretty quiet. Checked out the movie with Glenn Powell Glenn Powell. I think it's Glenn Powell.
Glenn Powell.
Yeah. And Sydney Sweeney.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Anyone But You.
Well, not for her, but I mean, sorry you had to watch that.
Yeah, this is definitely
the trailers look bad, man. Come on now.
Yeah, they do. The trailers looked mediocre to me. But Jackie was like, "Oh, I think I'd like that movie. I think I'd like it." And I was like, "Okay, we'll just watch it. Screw it." You know, I'll just watch
I
shit.
mean,
I was like, Sydney's
did
in
you at
it.
least
You know.
score? Did you at least score afterwards for watching that shit?
Yeah, yeah, I did.
Okay,
I don't know if it was because of it,
okay. Well, that might help.
yeah.
It probably
So
was because of Glenn Powell. Yeah,
yeah, maybe it was because of Glenn, man.
yeah,
He, you
yeah.
know, if he wants to do the heavy lifting and get the
That's
engine
right.
warmed up, you know, it's all right. I'll
I mean,
once it's in drive, I'll
Sydney
hop in the
Sweeney
seat.
Sydney Sweeney will get my engine warmed up.
Yeah, man. She but you know, she's probably the best. Her and Glenn are obviously the best actors in this film. And it's like it's very I don't know, I feel like the acting is kind of hollow. Like I feel like maybe Attack of the Clones was better in acting and portraying, you know, the emotions
Completely
you're
different
supposed to
movies, for
portray.
sure.
Yeah, you know, and so but there are like I will say there's like a handful of bright spots. There's a part where I will, you know, it's been out for a while, so a spider gets into Glenn Powell's underwear or something, and Sydney Sweeney's trying to, you know, make it look like she actually likes him. It's one of those movies where they kind of like each other. There was some, you know, something that happened between them. They don't want to admit they like each other, but they want to make it look like they like each other because their exes are there. And so they're like, yeah, let's just pretend. But anyways, there's a spider in his crack or something. And he's like, oh, there's a spider in my clothes. Let me just take everything off and, you know, flash my butt to the screen. And then he's like, is it there? And she's like looking up his butt to see if there's another spider there. And so
Hence the
Glenn
reason you
Powell's
got
just,
some.
he's like heaved over. And Sydney Sweeney's like, well, I don't know. I don't think it's there.
Wow.
Is she really? I'm like, is she really just looking up his butt right now?
Probably not.
Yeah,
Probably camera tricks.
probably. But you know what? Maybe she was. Who knows, man? And then there's an Australian dude that calls his Wena an Antita, and then it shows the
My
dude's pee
God.
hole. Yes.
What?
Yeah. He has it in his hands, but just the tip. And he goes, oh, my Antita. Oh. Okay.
Wow.
Yeah.
You watched this? I'm sorry. I think
I watched it. I told you the movie was. I told you it. You know, played for the
gay.
other team. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was gay. The movie was gay. There's also a gay wedding in it, so it's
Wow.
gay.
Yeah, man, you just watched a whole full gay movie.
Yeah, man, I did.
It was a rom-com disguised as a gay com.
Yes, yeah, man. The Trojan horse.
They throw Sydney Sweeney in there to say get the guys interested, and then the Glenn Powell in there for the girls, and then that's not what it's all about.
That's what happened.
And you spent your hard-earned money on the shit and watched it.
I did, man. I could have gone to
But you score.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, there was that. There's that. You know, I guess from what I hear,
I hope you watch a manly movie after that to get your man card back a little bit.
I did. You know, I watched. I think I watched Abbey Road. You know.
Wow.
No. No. I actually I don't know if I've seen anything. Yeah, no, I didn't. I think that's the last thing I watched. I haven't gotten the taste out of my mouth. Nope. I tried, but you know, the kids are always taking. I played Battlefront. I don't know if that counts. You go in and shoot, you know, shoot down some droids.
It's a small portion.
Small portion. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I did watch Star Wars. The Bad Patch season 3 kicked off with 3 episodes, and man, good stuff so far, man. The first 3 episodes, and man, I want to say this spoiler free because it's just came out, and I know you haven't watched them all. And the stuff they're doing in the show is if they're going where I think they might be going with it, Filoni, in the work he's done on these animated shows, has not only made the prequels amazingly better.
Yeah,
there's stuff in there that he's doing that could lead into what happens in the sequels that will make people appreciate the sequels more. And that's why I always encourage people to watch the animated Star Wars stuff. Don't just throw it away, because it really enhances the universe, of what's being done in the last several years of Star Wars. And granted, some of the live action shows, you don't really have to watch Mandalorian, I don't think, or even Boba Fett, but like Rebels and Ahsoka and the Clone Wars stuff, I think some of that's real
Yeah.
essential to what's going on with Star Wars. Even Obi-Wan, you don't really have to watch that show to keep up with the overall picture, but definitely the animated stuff and Ahsoka. And and man, and the Bad Batch season 3 starts off with 3 really strong episodes. And just the character development, that show has been so good over the 2 seasons so far, and I can't recommend it enough. And I was one of those that at first was like, yeah, we need more clone stuff. And the first 2 or 3 episodes is a little tough to get
Mhm.
into. Once the show gets rolling, man, it's so well done. It's just well written, well voice acted. And I'm kind of sad that it's the final season. It's going to end, but I also think that it's a story that needs to end at a certain point. You don't need to continue this show on for 5, 6 seasons. I think 3 is enough. And I have a feeling Filoni's not done. Just because Bad Batch is ending,
No.
he's probably got something in the pipeline. I mean, been rumors for a year about an animated series that has Luke and Leia and Han in it. So we'll see, where it goes down. Because I mean, if you think about what they're doing, it almost makes sense to do an animated series next that is post Return of the Jedi that can tie in with the Ben Solo stuff and the First Order and things like that. I just feel like that's a route you almost have to take after where you've been, especially with
Mhm.
the Ray movie coming out and things like that. It feels like you're going to want some stuff that ties in with that stuff, and this is all speculation by me. I don't have any insider information or anything, just things I've read on the internet. That's happening. So we'll see. But the Bad Batch season 3, man, I can't recommend watching it enough. It's really good stuff. And I didn't watch a lot this week either. I started a movie on Max, but I haven't finished yet. It's a man, what was it called? God damn it, I can't. It's a Akira Kurosawa film. Um, Throne of Blood. It's on Max. It's one of his samurai
Throne of
movies,
Blood.
and I need to go back and finish it. And it's good so far, man. Akira Kurosawa is the master of that genre, and we've got his classic Seven Samurai on the docket here soonish. Um, my possible spoiler, that could end up being our 400th episode, because it just feels like such a special film to do as a milestone episode, because it's one of the most influential films of all time, if not the most influential film of all time for anyone that watches science fiction, westerns, action films. If you've never seen Seven Samurai, then But Throne of Blood is good stuff too, man. So far that I've watched it, but I need to finish it. I was kind of dozing off watching it subtitled, so it's not good to
Uh,
doze off watching a subtitled movie. So I had to turn it off, and I got to go back and finish it. But that's kind of all I watched this week. Yeah, I've been kind of slacking too, man. It's like I'm going through that phase right now where I'm going through like the streaming services, and like, man, I kind of want to watch that, but there's been nothing new enough to make me like really want to watch it. Like
yeah.
next week, I'll watch Aquaman. It comes on Max on the 27th. I'll watch that, for sure. Even though DCU ended, I still want to see that last Aquaman film. I thought about like watching the Taika Waititi movie, Next Goal Wins, the soccer film. It kind of looked funny, but I was like, yeah, that's just kind of what I've been doing with like the streaming services lately. Yeah, I don't want to watch this. Don't. That's a different question. Why am I paying $20 for a streaming service? Why don't you fucking use it?
Yeah,
It's like,
that's true. Got to
and
get your use out of it.
but we got a little bit of we don't make news priority in the show anymore. But then there's things I want to talk about. We got a premiere date for The Boys season 4, June 13th. Feels very far away, but then it's not that far.
Yeah.
It just feels like this has been a long time coming. It's almost 2 years since season 3.
Hmm.
So it's like that's good news to kick off Boys season 4 on June 13th. Definitely looking forward to that. And then this Crow remake is still happy. It's a real thing. I mean, it's filmed. It's in the books, starring Bill Skarsgård, and it's got a release date now of June 7th, which is about a month after the 30th anniversary of the original film. And some information leaked out from the test screenings for this film that happened back in December, and this was supposed to be, the YouTube videos have been pulled down, but there's still transcripts and things out there. Because man, as a Crow fan, I've been reading some weird stuff about it, man. Like it's weird because people that saw it said it's actually good, but yet if they also said if you're a fan of the original film and the graphic novel, you're probably not going to like it. They said if you take it as a Crow film, it's good. It doesn't feel like an Eric Draven film. They were saying like he doesn't even put on the makeup till towards the end of the film, and the whole point in him putting on the makeup is to hide his sadness as he goes about the vengeance of his deaths of Shelley and him. I mean, so does a filmmaker not get that point? You know what I'm saying? You've read The Crow, you've seen the original movie.
Yeah.
So that's the whole reason he's behind the makeup, is to hide that information. And then apparently the bad guy has powers too, which in the Alex Proyas film, it alluded that the Crow gave him his powers. That was a bit of a change in the comic because the Skull Cowboy stuff didn't work out with the special effects back then. And I was fine with that. But Michael Wincott's Top Dollar didn't have any powers. He just found his power from being a cunning badass who tried to defeat the Crow by killing the bird. I mean, that's fine. Yeah. So those things I've read about it are just bizarre to me. They said that Skarsgård gives a good performance. They said, he's not quite Brandon Lee, but they said for what he's given to work with, and he does fine. But man, I'm expecting a trailer soon for this if it's coming out in June. Interesting, man. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, out of the blue.
Yeah, the only other disappointment, the 4K version of the original Crow is coming out on May 7th, and the special features are a little bit disappointing. There's like a new brief documentary on it and some other things, but a lot of the special features are just repeats of versions you've already owned, same deleted scenes. It just feels like with 30 years of tech, and there's more Crow stuff out there that's never been released. We know that they filmed Skull Cowboy scenes, but they didn't work out. Instead, the Skull Cowboy scenes that you can see on the previous Blu-rays and DVDs are part of the montage. It's like, why not just release those scenes? It's kind of weird they aren't doing more for the 30th anniversary 4K release of that classic film. So I don't know. How do you feel about this Crow reimagining? I mean,
we are getting the Crow again, but like you said, it's I always felt like it's a movie that didn't need to be redone. But there's money to be made. So, there's always that. I'm going to go see it if it's released and it's on time, of course.
But, I don't know, man. I don't know if I'll go to theaters to see it. Just because, like, the things I've read about it, I don't know, man. It's got my interest waning.
It is weird. Like, compared to the source material, it's sounds off. But I don't know. You know me, I'll just go see anything sometimes. But yeah, it's odd. I thought this thing was like dead in the water. But very surprised that it's come up and it's gonna make it to theater somehow.
Yeah, no, apparently it filmed last year, so it's been done for a bit, and and I knew I had read it had some test screenings around Christmas time and stuff like that, and there was a lot of talk that the movie wasn't going to come out till later this year, but apparently it's ready and done, and it's going to have a little bit earlier release. And then it had been moved up as early as a March or April release, but now it looks like it's going to be early June. So the studio must have some faith in it. They're giving it a summer release,
Yeah.
I guess. So I'm assuming the test screenings went well and things, despite the rumors that are on the internet, because even though they say they're test screening leaks, I still think you got to take them with a grain of salt and rumors. So, we'll see. It's just a movie and a comic, and it's very near and dear to me. The Crow came out in a time in my life where I was really kind of maturing and growing up some and discovering, graphic novels that weren't just Batman and stuff. And then the movie came out at the right time, and it just kind of, the death of Brandon Lee and everything, the movie just kind of, hit me at the right time. It's one of my all-time favorite films, period. So we'll see how it works out.
I remember those Halloweens where everyone was the Crow.
Yeah. Just a huge, became a huge pop culture. And then we all know, I've told the story before about, when we first started out this podcast, and I did a little interview with James O'Barr at Compalooza, and talking about that time Luke Evans was going to star in the remake, and talked to him a bit about the Crow, went to his panel, which was great. I can't remember if you were there with me at the panel, and and then I lost the interview, and I was so upset. And then I found the interview maybe a year or 2 years later, on the anniversary of Brandon Lee's death, and I just, so bizarre and so weird. It was like meant to be. I know we played it on an episode later after that, so that was kind of cool. But yeah, it's just neat stuff, man. So yeah, man. So a little bit of news this week. Voice premiering, and some news on that long digesting Crow remake. All right, well, let's get into today's featured film, which is a movie that, man, I still cannot believe you had never seen this.
Yeah.
It's just a classic from the 90s. A Best Picture nominee. Tom Hanks, I believe, was nominated for Best Actor. Movie won a couple Oscars for, I think, sound effects, editing, and a couple other things. And directed by the great Ron Howard. And most of it was filmed in our home city, too, out at NASA. And that is Apollo 13. And, man, this movie it's a dramatization of the true story of the Apollo 13 astronauts, which were going to be the second group to land on the moon, if I remember right. Because Apollo 11 was the first, and Apollo 12 did not land on the moon. And Apollo 13 was going to be the next group that landed on the moon. And the
13th hour on the 13th day.
Yeah, and it stars Tom Hanks, the great Bill Paxton, Gary Sinise, Kevin Bacon. In fact, everyone in this film is fantastically good. It's just a really well acted movie across the board. I mean, Kevin Bacon's not always been known for his acting, but you can tell that he showed up in this. He realized he was working with some good actors, and he wanted to do a good job, and it shows. And Ron Howard's direction is superb in this. And it deals with the real life dramatization as the Apollo 13 goes into space, into orbit, and to head to the moon, and a malfunction occurs on the ship. And so people at NASA and Mission Control have to work hard to find a way to bring them home safely. And it's still, to this day, bringing them back home is still considered one of the greatest achievements of NASA and of mankind, almost as great as landing a man on the moon, because they really thought there was no hope of getting them back home, that they were lost, but they managed to do it.
Yeah, it was 10-1 odds. 10-1 odds that they would make it home.
The TV coverage was my mom told me that every day, that's all they talked about on TV was these astronauts getting them home. It became a major worldwide event as people were watching to see what NASA and the U.S. government were going to do to get these men home. And the government, for their part, just really was more support, because it was all up to NASA. And but amazing group of men. Ed Harris plays the mission control chief, and between them, and they do their job and to ultimately bring them home into safety. But the movie, this is one of those dramas that's it's a textbook drama in the way that the story unfolds, but man, is it riveting, and that's, I think, from the direction of Howard to the actors and their jobs, to the pacing of the film, to the musical score. It doesn't feel boring, at all.
Doesn't.
I mean,
it goes by real fast.
And
feels
that's
like
what I want to get
20 minutes
your
long.
Because it's your first time you ever saw this. So what were your thoughts on it? Because, sometimes it's hard to watch, movies that we watch now and then watch a drama from the 90s, because it is a little different.
Man, I think it's one of the things that saved him was Gary Sinise's character, when they thought he was going to have a fever and have the measles sometime up after launch and halfway through the moon, because they detected measles in his blood. And so they held him back, and that's how Kevin Bacon got in there. And I feel like that's what helped him, because he knew the spacecraft, and he was able to find a way to buy him a little bit more time. And they do a really good job, like, dramatizing everything that they face, from, how are they going to have enough fuel to get back? Like, okay, they're going to have to go all the way to the moon and back and use the return orbit to get them back headed this way. and they're going to have to use the lunar module's, propulsion system, even though it was only meant to just leap off from the moon, not go back. So it's like, man, we've got to bet on this. All right, this wasn't really meant for this, but hopefully this works. And then they've got the carbon dioxide sickness, and so they've got to come up with a new filtration system out of just stuff that they have there. And they're like, all right, these guys are about to friggin' die right now. Here's they MacGyver it. Here's a square and a square object and a round hole, or vice versa. Some duct tape, a suit, a glove, and make it work. And and they make it work to buy them some more time, and everything just falls together. And Ed Harris's character is excellent. Whenever he says, "You know what? I think this is going to be our finest hour," and it ended up being the finest hour. And it flip flops between what the astronauts are going through, by arguing with each other. Kevin Bacon was the alternate, and Bill Paxton was like, what did you see whenever you stirred the tanks? What, and Tom Hanks's character, he's trying to keep them together and stop them from fighting. They also have a water supply issue.
What is your objective? I want to go home.
Yeah. And I think he actually said that. I believe whenever I was reading up, that's an actual quote.
Yeah, it was based on the book from Jim Lovell that he wrote himself, and so a lot of Lovell's dialogue is as close as he can remember to saying those things. Yeah,
yeah, and then his Lovell's wife. It's also showing the story back on Earth through her eyes, as well, and what she's going through, and man, it's changing perspectives a lot. You have NASA. You've got is it Fox? I think Fox is the other station that is helping, and then you've got Lovell's wife. You've got the astronauts, and then every once in a while it goes to like the studio, the new studio people.
They use a lot of real footage too.
They did.
Walter Cronkite and such.
Yeah, Walter Cronkite. That's the way it was. but yeah, and then they also used pictures that were taken from space aboard Apollo 8, which I guess Lovell was part of that mission, and he alludes to previously being up in space before, with his current supervisor. Same guy from the Mission Impossible films. I was like, that's the guy from the Mission Impossible films. I forget. Yeah. He's like, yeah, he was with us on Apollo 8, and now he's our boss. But it's a really good film. It's, they've got great performances out of pretty much everybody. Kevin Bacon, like you said, usually not the kind of actor you would have in this film, but he gives
not that Bacon's a bad actor, but Bacon just Bacon's kind of an actor for hire. You're going to hire him, you're going to get Kevin Bacon,
Yeah.
But he steps it up in this film with the other
popcorn
actors.
Film, film guy. And this was a different type of performance than we're used to seeing from him. Gary Sinise, the only films I'm really used to seeing him in is, really Forrest Gump. And True. He's Gary Sinise.
Oh,
yeah,
Sinise.
Hanks. I see him in everything. I saw a lot of Hanks movies growing up. Big. I remember seeing Big. I loved that movie. But this is another one for him. Just great performance from him, and then Bill Paxton reminding us why we love Bill Paxton. He's fun. He can show emotion. And him flipping out, it seems genuine. The vomit rocket is convincing that he has up in space. But yeah, man, I enjoyed the film, and it was cool watching just the scrambling and trying to stay calm, and everyone's drinking like, 2 pots of coffee a day. They're not sleeping hardly at all. They're taking naps in the mission control room, just randomly on the floor, and then waking up and, all right, what are we doing?
And
what's
lots of
going on now?
1970s haircuts.
Yes, lots of 1970s haircuts. That high top, the old high top.
The old high top or the bald comb overs.
Yep. Oh yeah, a lot of that.
Imagine if you wore a bald comb over now.
No, dude.
You'd be laughed out of a grocery store.
Yeah, dude, for real. That's like just cut it off.
1972, you could go to the grocery store with your hair like that.
That's right, man. That was the do right there.
That's it.
Or the donut,
Be like, hey,
donut.
baby, you like my comb over? I've got it going on, don't I?
Got 3 strings.
In this movie too, Jim Lovell and the real Fred Hayes, who Bill Paxton portrayed, a lot of them were on set and were kind of what do you call it? What's the word?
Consultants
on the film.
Yeah.
They helped with it. And Jim Lovell said he when he saw the film, he said the CGI was so convincing that he thought like they had used NASA footage or something of some kind.
Yeah,
I thought it was kind of funny, and because I was thinking that too, watching this for 1995. It's a really good looking movie. It's because there's some stuff you can watch in the mid 90s that is kind of rough. I mean, you got the Scorpion King or movies like that are just like, wow, this is terrible.
Yeah.
But this is a really, really good looking film, and I think that what makes it convincing that you're buying into what these astronauts are going through. And I wanted to go back and talk too about. I think that's what makes the pacing of the film so well is the multi-layered stories between the wives, the NASA crew, and then the astronauts up top, because you could have easily made this movie and been focused on just the astronauts. But I think it's important. I think Ron Howard understood that. It's important that all the men and women that were involved in this to get them back home. That it took a group of people, not just the 3 astronauts to do it. Because the 3 astronauts essentially don't do anything except what they're told as they're trying to figure this out. They're scared. They're frightened. I mean, can you imagine floating in space for 12 days, something like that? I think it was being almost 15 days total, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like, wow. I mean, your whole thoughts are you're going to die. I mean,
there's no one out there. It's like it's this just big empty,
Yeah, you're relying on the trust of men that were on the ground to get you through this. Like, I mean, when they told him we need you to go around the moon into the dark where there's no contact, you're like, what? I mean, so for the next 12 hours or whatever it was, you can't contact anyone here in the darkness of the moon. They came out on the other side. They didn't know where they were going to be. Were they going to get slingshot away from the moon's orbit, or was it going to work? Luckily, it worked. I mean, can you imagine? I mean, if it didn't work, they were gone. But luckily, they believed in the scientists to help them get through, and it did work. They came out on the other side, and they were slinging shot back towards Earth, and that's when they had to use a lunar module to give it a little push and get back in line. And man, somehow it amazingly works out. And I think about this. I'm a big fan of NASA and the space program, and I am excited that they're going back to the moon on Artemis, and I think this is one of the finest achievements that NASA. I mean, going to the moon and hell, building a rocket in the first place is a fucking achievement, right? But I really think that bringing these men back home is one of the greatest achievements of the 20th century.
Especially a rocket that doesn't just blow up when it hits something,
right?
One that actually has multi-stage propulsion systems, and gets people into space. Yeah,
and then it's just such an amazing achievement. And I know NASA I don't want to get into NASA and its detractors and its conspiracy theorists that it's all not real. I'm sorry, I'm never going to believe that. There's no way you can cover up 50,000 people that work for NASA and tell me the shit's all fake. That's just not. I don't think that's possible.
Exactly.
And I think going to the moon and space travel is important for the world. I know there's people in the government that don't think it's important because they have to fund it, but I do think it's important, and I think going back to the moon is important. And Apollo 13 is one of those stories that just makes that inspirational to go back to the moon. I mean, this is one of those movies that after you watch it, like you feel like you want to go do something inspiring.
Yeah, man. Go to the moon, or work for NASA, even if it's like serving sandwiches.
And
You're like, I want to be there, dude.
And it's cool too, because I mean, I've been to NASA and I've been in the room. One of the tours I did was the mission control room, and it's pretty cool when you watch a movie and see like, man, it's in my own backyard. It's 40 minutes away out there, NASA Road One, and I
Yeah.
stood in that room that Ed Harris stood in to make this, and I think that's pretty cool,
Yep. Yeah, I think Ed Harris still sports that flat top, man.
I mean,
Or
he's
what's
had the
left
flat
of it.
top pretty much his whole career. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think he's ever not had a flat top. Now he's pretty much bald, but
He's like, oh, I'm gonna keep this, and then I'm gonna just play a bunch of military roles, and it'll work.
Yeah. Now, yeah. Okay. Now looking at this, yeah, it was filmed. Most of it was filmed here in Houston and in Johnson Space Center in Florida, or Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Johnson Space Center is here. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So Tom
That's
Hanks
awesome,
or
man.
Ed Harris stood in that room.
Yeah, man. We did RoboCop 2 last year, and then we're doing Apollo 13 here. Films that were.
I mean, there's been a few movies, like Space Cowboys with Clint Eastwood was filmed at NASA, but
yeah,
NASA has always been pretty generous to Hollywood and allowing them to film there when it's needed. Armageddon, a lot of that was filmed at NASA. Here in town. I remember reading about that when it was being filmed, that Billy Bob Thornton and them were filming. Now obviously the asteroid things were all built on sets in Hollywood, but they filmed parts of that movie here in NASA.
Mm-hmm. So
that's pretty cool, man. But it just kind of blew my mind that you had never seen this. I guess just one of those that just accidentally escaped you,
Yeah. I know the quote, but it's one of those like, I think maybe, I would see that it was on, streaming somewhere, playing on one of those random cable channels. And I was, just always pass it up because I'm just like, I was younger, it wasn't like it's not Michael Bay presents Apollo.
When you're like 14 years old, it's probably not a movie that's going to really appeal to you unless you're really into NASA.
Yeah.
Because it's, it's science fiction, but it's real life science fiction, and it's more of an adult story than as a kid. You're probably not going to watch Apollo 13.
Yeah. But man, I'm glad I caught it. I was definitely late to the party because that's exactly what it is. I feel like the run time feels like it's under an hour, and it's really about 2. It's like 2 hours.
Yeah, because sometimes we'll do these movies for the podcast, and I'll watch them over a couple days. I'll watch an hour here, an hour there. But I sat down and watched this straight through the other day. I was like, it's just because it's that good. It's riveting. You could have argued it could have won Best Picture that year, even though it was just nominated. I didn't look to see who did win in 1995. And people forget, this is back when Tom Hanks was just on an absolute roll. I mean, starting with Philadelphia to Forrest Gump to Apollo 13, all the way through Saving Private Ryan. I mean, Tom Hanks had a 7 or 8 year period there where he was just in all these great films with his great acting abilities and his mannerisms. Is Jim Lovell's wife even was so shocked about how Tom Hanks acted just like Jim Lovell.
Yeah.
So, and
same mannerisms and
yeah. And I think that's pretty cool to show you how good Tom is. I mean, he's one of our greatest actors of all time. There's no doubt about that. And, this movie is just full of good actors.
Yeah. Some of the stunts that they had to do, apparently they had to fly up in a Boeing. And then whenever the Boeing would kind of free fall, they would obtain like a weightlessness. And so some of those scenes, like there was a minute that they used from the free fall of that Boeing jet to film some of that.
Yeah.
Everything else was, used camera tricks for that, but that's what they had to do to achieve some of those special effects.
Yep. Yeah. And I think I read that none of them actually threw up on the vomit comet during training. They actually all made it through, and they were proud of that.
Yeah.
So, and they said I think the NASA engineers saying most actors don't do that. That most of them usually someone throws up. So, so that was pretty cool. But I think the biggest thing rewatching this too, and I have to mention this every time we do a movie with him, is I just miss Bill Paxton. Every time.
Yeah, man.
And then Gary Sinise, man. I mean, I know he does TV work now. He was on CSI for a lot of years, and Gary went from doing movies to doing mostly TV work now. But Gary Sinise is such a good actor.
Oh, Gary Sinise, man, he does do a good job. He does what you ask him to do. He's not the headliner, but he's a pretty good supporting character.
Yeah, no, he does a good job. But man, Apollo 13, good solid film. One of the best of the 90s. A great dramatization, a great story, and a true story. And that's what's cool about it.
Yeah. Made tons of money too.
Yeah, made a lot of money at the box office.
500 something million worldwide.
Yeah.
Which was, I think, like 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Yeah, like 10 times its budget. So pretty darn good.
Yeah. All right. Well, next week we're going to kick off the beginning of March with a movie that came out during COVID and but found enough at the box office and found enough fans on Max and through video sales, because this is a franchise that has a huge following. Dune fans are very loyal to the books, to the David Lynch films, to the science fiction miniseries. So we thought with Dune Part 2 coming out, we would go back and take a look at Dune Part 1.
There's something happening to me. There's something awakening in my mind. I can't control it.
What did you see?
There's a crusade coming.
Do you often dream things that happen just as you dreamed them?
Yes.
The test is simple. Remove your hand from the box, and you die.
What's in the box?
Pain. You inherit too much power. You have proven you can rule yourself. Now you must learn to rule others. Something none of your ancestors learned.
My father rules an entire planet.
He's losing it.
He's getting a richer one.
He'll lose that one too. Arrakis is a death trap.
I'll kill them. This is an extermination. They're picking my family off one by one.
Let's fight like demons.
An animal caught in a trap will gnaw off its own leg to escape. What will you do?
I know you.
One day, the legend will be born. All of civilization depends on it.
The future. I can see it. I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer.
My Lord Duke.
Where the fear is gone, only I will remain.
Go, go, go!
Directed by Denis Villeneuve. This is not a movie that I was a huge fan of when it came out. I like the way the film looks. I like the way it's presented, because Villeneuve is an amazing director, one of the best we have working right now. It's more, I just don't find a lot of interest in the story, but I want to talk about it because I feel with the new one coming out, our people that listen to the show, they like to, current events type stuff. With Dune Part 2 coming out, we'll go back and look at Dune Part 1 from a couple years ago. And I, it's not that I dislike the film. I don't find the story super interesting. So, but I'll explain all that next week whenever we talk about it. Had some good performances in it from Timothy Chalamet and and several other actors. Oscar Isaac, Josh Brolin, Jason Momoa, a lot of really good actors in this movie. So it should be fun to go back and rewatch it this week. And I think it's still on Netflix and it's on Max, so plenty of places to watch it streaming. And we'll go back and discuss Dune next week as we get ready for Dune Part 2 in theaters, which I probably won't even see in theaters. I'll just wait for it at home like I did the first one. Because it's like something I want to go see, but it's 3 hours. The kids ain't going to want to watch it. It's like, when am I going to have time to go see Dune Part 2 in theaters? It's like, I can wait if I have to.
That's true.
In the world.
And then sometimes when you take kids to go see a movie they don't want to see, they make a big fuss and stuff.
Yeah.
They get distracted, so it kind of just ruins your.
My oldest, he would watch Dune, but the little ones, it's just too complex of a story for them to be interested in it.
Yeah.
And that's fine. So that's next week on the show. But until then, like I mentioned earlier in the show, the rebelradiopodcast.com for all your Rebel Radio needs. And thank you as always for listening. We do appreciate it. And until next time, this has been Mark.
This has been Matt.
Remember, as always, just go there
and do it.